Yeah, so again, there was an interview last week which Zoe Ball interviewed Michael Shannon, who I really like Michael Shannon. I think he's a really terrific actor, a very, very sort of powerful screen presence. I remember Werner Herzog was talking about casting him in...
Impression alert.
No, I'm not going to do a Werner Herzog impression. All right, well, in My Son, what have you done? And he said, you know, that he came into the audition and he had this really intense, really sort of scary presence. And, you know, of course, he worked with William Friedkin and Bug, and he's, you know, the thing that he's known for is he's one of those people, and people always refer, you know, intense, scary, all that kind of thing, but he has a face that draws the camera. So the Iceman is an episodic, and it has to be said, somewhat wiggy story. Wiggy in as much as there are hair appliances.
Oh, so not WHIG, not a kind of a liberal thing.
Says a man who did his degree in political science. Well done.
History and politics, actually. But, well, the Whigs.
I meant
an American
wig.
political movement as well.
Yeah, no, I meant wig as in wig, okay. As in the wearing of wigs and stick on sideburns. Yeah, exactly. Funnily enough, so on the one hand, this film has the wigs of Liberace. On the other hand, it has the central conceit from After Earth, which is that the central character has to feel nothing, has to feel no fear. Hence, he is the Iceman. So it is the story. It's billed as Zodiac meets Goodfellas, although I have to say that just because a film reminds you of other films doesn't mean it's in any way comparable to them or like them or can hold a candle to them. It's just, so anyway, the director saw a documentary on HBO about this guy, Richard Kuklinski, who was serving life for committed a series of murders about which he apparently had no emotion, and it seemed to demonstrate no emotion about anything other than about his family, about his wife and kids. And he was called the Iceman because he was icy, much as Will Smith's character has to become in After Earth. Here's a clip of him and Ray Liotta, who is another reason why it is that people keep making comparisons to The Godfather, not to The Godfather, to Godfellas. That's a documentary. That's a documentary about the Vatican, Godfellas. If anybody makes that, then thank you very much. Here's a clip.
Yeah. Fucking guy's cold as ice. Come on, you gotta feel something for somebody. Got a girlfriend?
I'm married.
Then why do you act like you don't give a shit?
What do you want?
I'm closing the porn lab. I'm sorry, but you're out of a job. If you could follow orders, you got everything to gain. Go put the bum out of his misery. If you don't have it in you, now's the time to say it.
There's an interesting story. The director says, having watched this documentary about the real-life character on whom this is based, he said, I was amazed by the story. The weirdest feeling I had was that I liked the guy. And this is kind of crucial because in order for the movie to be interesting, you sort of have to like him too. And I didn't. Why? Because he's a cold-blooded, unfeeling sociopath.
Oh, there you go. Making it difficult again.
And it's what I do like is I like Michael Shannon. I think Michael Shannon's, you know, he's always good, and I'll watch him in anything. I mean, one of the things he's managed to do is he's managed to play this character as unlikable and unsympathetic, and it's not somebody that you can understand, and ultimately, I have to say, uninteresting. And to some extent, you know, plaudits for that, because in order for drama to work, you have to find a point of emotional engagement. You have to connect with the characters. I mean, actors always say this, you know, that whatever character you're playing, you have to find a way into them. You have to find a way of making them in some way sympathetic. The problem here is not that Michael Shannon isn't doing his job. It's that the rest of the drama isn't doing its job as well as it needs to. I mean, one thing about his performance is that the character that he's playing, he said when he saw footage of him, he was physically massive. And Michael Shannon does a lot of things, but he's not physically massive. And yet, his presence on screen, the way he holds himself. I mean, I always talk about this physicality of performances, and you refer to like Anthony Hopkins doing Nixon, and they don't actually look like the guy, but something about the way in which they carry themselves suggests that sort of weight. Now, it is true that there are stack heels are involved in this. I mean, because I'd heard it in the interview with Zoe, I was actually looking out for, he's wearing high heels there. That's not high heels, stack heels. Sorry, it's a slightly different thing. But he does give you that sense of massiveness. You get the sense that you're in the presence of a much larger man. What he needs is a much more interesting movie. I mean, whereas Zodiac concentrated on that kind of the surrounding milieu, on everything that was happening around the awful Zodiac case, and whereas Goodfellas had that thing when you managed to get inside the guy's mind because you kind of became swept up in the drama of what was happening, and that whole final act when it's this sort of drug fueled, everything's getting faster and faster, and the whole speed of the movie is, and you look at that, and then you look at a movie like Boogie Nights, which is actually much closer to the feeling of Goodfellas than this is, and then you look at this, and it's somebody with not much emotional response, sociopathic, plodding their way from one thing to the next until they get caught. And at the centre of it is the idea, which is how could he do all of that and then go back and have a relationship with his family? And the problem with the movie is that if you'd found a way of making that the centre of the drama, of answering that question of how is it that he could have done all this and then interacted with his family in a way that suggested that he was leading a normal life, fine. I mean, we know Winona Ryder is very good as his wife, and the actors that act his daughters are all doing a good job, but there's not, the filmmaking itself is not insightful enough to find. So what you get is an absence at the heart of darkness, that where you need an answer to make the thing work, to give you a point of entry, you don't have one. At very best, it's a very good performance looking for a much better film.